Hey, what's up? It's Dan and Randip, another edition of Canucks This Week. And Randip, well, what's going on this week? Elliot Friedman is just throwing Canucks and Leafs Twitter all up into it by suggesting and opining that the Leafs should go after JT Miller. Do the Canucks and Leafs make a trade fit, Randip?
Yeah, Elliot Friedman woke up dangerous that morning and said, you know what, I'm going to shake it up. I'm going to come up with a thought that will just pretty much wreck and not wreck, but at least rile up two markets. And okay, the Leafs and JT Miller. JT Miller, what do we know about this guy? He's a damn good player, point per game. He's got that brashness in his game, that confidence, that swagger that so many teams love. And the most important thing, he gives you flexibility, center down the middle. He can play the wing at extremely high level. I like the player. I think 95% of teams in the league would love him on their team. The other 5%, probably teams that are not competitive that wouldn't see a fit. The Leafs would love him, I think, but is it a fit? Is it what they need right now? No, they need defense, Dan. They have a top power play in the league. They're top 4 in scoring in the NHL. Tell me, what is wrong with Michael Bunting? What is wrong with some of the wingers that they have on that group? Nothing whatsoever. They're top 5 in scoring chances, high danger scoring chances in the NHL, trailing only teams like Florida and Carolina. So when I look at this Toronto Maple Leafs team, JT Miller would look good, but you know what their Achilles heel is? Defense and goaltending. That's what they need to use that Jake Muzzin LTIR money on. Upgrade the back end. Look at your goaltending situation, which has been atrocious in 2022, a save percentage of, sub 90. And Jack Campbell, that 5-on-5 save percentage is bottom 8 in the league. JT Miller, last time I checked, he didn't play goal or any side of defense.
Sometimes he plays goal. No, not always, but it's just very rare when the Canucks are completely under duress. We haven't seen that in a while. Look, I don't know if you know this, Randy, but the Leafs are not very good when it comes to playoff time. Right? Have you seen them in the playoffs in recent years? They haven't gotten out of the first round since 2004. Do you know that about the Maple Leafs?
Hold on a second. I'm just going back in Hockey Night Canada Punjabi history. I don't believe we've done a second round playoff matchup with the Leafs in a while. Yeah.
See, so then you should know that JT Miller would be the perfect fit for the Maple Leafs. I mean, come on. Yes, okay, they go out and they get Nick Foligno last year and they have Wayne Simmons at the bottom of their lineup. They clearly want to add some grit and physicality, but the thing that is different about JT Miller compared to a Nick Foligno, which apparently the Leafs fans on Twitter don't know as they keep yelling about it in my mentions, JT Miller is actually really good. He's a point-a-game player that brings the sandpaper, the grit that the Leafs so desperately need. But Michael Bunting, okay, great. He's got 17 goals. He's nowhere near the level of player that JT Miller is, nor is Andre Kasha, who is an injury away from just absolutely leaving the Leafs top 6 and leaving an open hole there. I get it. Yes, the Leafs have had some real successes with some of the bets that they've made, but now all of a sudden you have this money opening up with Jake Muzzin going on LTIR. Go big. What more do you have? You have 2 years left of Austin Matthews after this year. You have to go big. Now is the time. JT Miller is the best available forward on the market that has more than just the rest of this year left on his deal.
Okay.
You can say Thomas Hertl, you can say Joe Pavelski, Claude Giroux, whatever. They're all rentals. JT Miller signed at a great number even through next year.
Okay, if the Leafs were to make that move, you know what they would remind me of? They would remind me of that guy at the gym that always works out the biceps and the chest and ignores leg day. Leg day is important. If you got chicken legs, it doesn't matter. That's what the Leafs would be. They got essentially a goaltending situation that needs help in the lead up to the playoffs and the lead up to the trade deadline. They need somebody on the back end to provide some solid, consistency. Even when Jake Muzzin's in the lineup, there's some serious questions about that group. And I hate to break it to you, Ilya Lyubushkin is not the answer. That was a part of the answer. He can hit, but he's not the answer. We've watched a fair bit of Arizona Coyotes hockey. At some point, he's going to be maybe providing a physical response. He's a player that can at least add some physicality. But this team, if you make that JT Miller move, hey, great. You got huge biceps, but you got skinny legs. And that's what this team would be. You got to upgrade on the back end of things.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that analogy.
Just saying, it's one that works, doesn't it?
I kind of follow. I don't know. Brendan Gaunt's burning Ilya Lyubushkin was pretty funny and pretty hilarious for Canucks fans the other night who watched Brendan Gaunt's for a few years. Good to see him doing well. But at the end of the day, okay, trade fit or not, you don't believe it. I do. It seems as though the Leafs do have some level of interest in acquiring a player like JT Miller. What does that trade look like? And why does it have to be William Nylander that comes back to the Vancouver Canucks in order to get this deal done?
Well, clearly it's because William Nylander is the player that got away from the Canucks. That was the one that they should have had in the draft if you ask Canucks fans. But
2014,
okay,
yep.
In all seriousness, though, the return, we've been talking about, hey, JT Miller gets traded. Is that a deal with the New York Rangers? What would that look like? I think the Leafs, if you're making this deal, a young defenseman has to come back. And whether that's a Topi Niemelä, I think that name has been thrown out there a little bit. Or if you're the Canucks, you're going for a current NHLer, and his name is Timothy Liljegren. Now, Leafs fans might throw up in their mouth when they hear that, but the fact of the matter is, if you are going for a high-end player, a player who has been consistently top 25, top 30 in the NHL in the scoring this year, you're going to have to give up something good. And Timothy Liljegren is, from all signals, Dan, is the player that the Canucks have been looking at over the last couple of years. They've been, at the very least, showing recent interest, or maybe that's on top of their wish list when it comes to the Leafs. That's where I start, because you need somebody who can step in now. You're not thinking about 3 or 4 years down the line. You're thinking about a young defenseman now.
Well, look, the Canucks aren't going into a rebuild. We've talked about this. They want to be able to turn this thing around quickly. They'd love to make hockey trades, right? Which mean, they get a real roster player coming back. So yeah, William Nylander, pipe dream. I get that. But yes, the Canucks would absolutely love something like that in a JT Miller trade or a Brock Besser trade, whatever they're looking at. But Timothy Liljegren is the name that makes a ton of sense here for the Canucks perspective. And I know Leaf fans are probably going to freak out at that, given that Liljegren has finally come good after all this time, spent the days in the AHL, worked his way up, looked like he wasn't turning out as the first round prospect that he was a few years ago. But this year, like, the two-way results for Timothy Liljegren have been really, really strong. And he's been getting more and more responsibility and has taken that well on top of that. Like, here's what I know is not going to get this deal done. Alex Kerfoot and Justin Hall. Okay. So sorry, Leaf fans. If you want JT Miller, you actually have to give up something of value. This guy's got 171 points in 172 games with the Vancouver Canucks. He scored 18 points in their playoff run a couple of years ago. So this is going to cost something if the Leafs do in fact go down this road. Timothy Liljegren, probably one of their top end prospects. Maybe they don't get Matthew Nyes, who apparently Leafs feel is pretty much untouchable, but either Niemelä, maybe looking at Nick Robertson, and a first-round pick. You go through the history of the NHL trade deadline, deals like this that involve a high-end player going to a contender, has term left on his deal. It costs you, Randip, a first-round pick, one of your top-end prospects, and a guy who is looked at as being either a roster player or really close to being an NHL player. So I think that's what this deal looks like if it actually gets done. Something around Timothy Liljegren and a first-round pick.
Well, Kyle Dubas has mentioned that, hey, they're not in it for rentals. When you look for more term, when you look for some team control, you're going to have to pay that much more of a price, right? If you look at rentals, yeah, you can maybe get away with a couple of draft picks depending on how high the caliber of player you're trying to go for is. And I know it cost the Leafs a fair bit with Nick Foligno, but when you're talking about term, you're having that one of the better discounts in the NHL right now, which is JT Miller's contract. That is a part of the value add. When you talked about a couple of the younger players, and the Leafs, hey, they might be able to put together a pretty decent package, but from everything we've heard across the league, it seems like there's at least a couple of teams that would be interested in JT Miller. One of them, the New York Rangers. Now, if you look at that potential package with the Toronto Maple Leafs versus what maybe the Rangers could provide with the Niels Lundqvist, and maybe there's a first-round pick of Vitaly Kravtsov, I look at that deal. I feel like the Rangers have more ability to move up and down. They can add more pieces. They can add maybe a higher caliber defenseman if Liljegren's not a part of the mix. It just feels like the Rangers, if you're kind of putting offer one hypothetical versus another, it feels like the Rangers with their additional talent that they have in their prospect pool, they might have some more options.
The Rangers have an incredible prospect pool and a deep one. You know, even some of the names that don't get mentioned all that often, the Canucks do have some level of interest in some of their lower level prospects as well. So it's not going to be easy for the Leafs. You know, you've got to have to pay up to get JT Miller. Maybe they want Luke Schenn as well. That'll fill your defensive need, maybe, Randip. It would be a marriage made in heaven to bring Luke Schenn back to Toronto as part of a Miller deal as well, don't you think?
Okay,
Liljegren goes out, but Luke Schenn comes in to fill the void on the right side.
Okay, here's the problem with that, though. The Leafs will love that, I think. I think that would bring back a comeback story, a player that was like much maligned in media for being a bust at the end of his Leafs career and comes back and is.
Hey, man, JVR for Luke Schenn is probably one of the better trades in Leaf history.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But like the way he left, it was kind of like, all right, this guy's not it, right? There's not the savior that they thought he was. But still, at the same time, from a Canucks perspective, how many years are you going to have Quinn Hughes playing with random dudes on the right-hand side? He already lost one dad on the team, Chris Tanev. You lose Luke Schenn. What do you have playing next to him every single year? Like, I have a problem with that from a Canucks perspective because you do have Luke Schenn on a 2-year deal. He's still going to have value next year for a team. Do you want some consistency next to Quinn Hughes or not is my question. From a Canucks perspective, I think they'd be foolish to move off of Luke Schenn this year because build some consistency with Quinn Hughes. He's playing next to random dudes year after year, guys.
So Canucks fans, in the comments, let us know what you think about Randip's untouchables list for the Vancouver Canucks. Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko, Elias Pettersson, and of course, Luke Schenn.
Hey, I value intangibles, all right? I value intangibles.
What do you think of a Leafs and Canucks potential trade fit? Is there one there? What needs to go in that deal for the Canucks to be willing to do it? How far should the Leafs be willing to go to get JT Miller on their roster? Let us know in the comments, and thank Elliot Friedman for giving us a week's worth of content with this one opinion. It is the Sportsnet YouTube channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.